This is Rockslapping Champions. Player 1, playing Karax, we have Lotharax. And player 2, playing Vorazun, we have Razor. So, while the commanders are getting set up, as usual, we'll have a look at the masteries here. We have the unit cost reduction for Karax, the repair beam, and then the chrono boost mastery here. The unit cost reduction is very useful if you're going for a unit-centric build. Structure HP can be used if you're going for a static defense build, so we should be expecting a unit build here for Karax. Karax has also gone for the repair beam instead of the chrono wave energy regeneration. I personally prefer the chrono wave energy regeneration because I tend to aggressively use my Spear of Adun abilities. I tend to spam them a lot more, but the repair beam mastery is also a relatively decent choice. Over here we have the chrono boost mastery instead of the Spear of Adun energy, and personally I would go for the Spear of Adun energy here because with the initial energy you can use it to fast expand on certain missions, and this one is one of the ones where you can actually use that. So you start off with maybe about 90 energy, just give it a little bit of time, and you can do a fast expand with Karax and improve your economy significantly. On Vorazun's side, we have the Dark Pylon range instead of the Black Hole duration. This is definitely not the correct choice. The Black Hole duration is one of the best masteries here for Vorazun, and it can help you when you're dealing with Swarmy Zerg or Air Turn compositions especially. Having the Black Hole just completely disable the enemy units and reducing their armor to 0 makes that ability very, very useful. We have the Shadow Guard duration over the time stop speed increase. If you do use your Shadow Guards a lot, you can go for that, but personally I also go for the time stop speed increase because I find that significantly more useful. And then we have the initial points into the Spear of Adun energy instead of the chrono boost. Vorazun doesn't really need the initial Spear of Adun energy. You know, I tend to go for the chrono boost mastery here, so basically just a complete opposite selection as to what I would have gone for. The other thing to also note is the Dark Pylon range can be used if you have a very particular plan in mind. So just to give you an example, if you're doing certain mutations and you want to try and cheese the mutation by walling off your base and having a Dark Pylon behind, you can go for the Dark Pylon range. But generally speaking, you want to go for the Black Hole duration. So the first attack wave has spawned, and it is Zerg, and it appears that we are dealing with Swarmy Zerg, which is one of the compositions I listed out when I was talking about the Black Hole duration. Having the Black Hole duration can completely disable that Swarmy Zerg attack wave and keep yourself alive. A few snipes down coming here for Karax, and all is good. So over here we're seeing the Vorazun has actually started to go for Vorazun's already gotten the level 1 ground attack upgrade and has already started to put down and started to research the next armor level upgrade, which is also kind of interesting in itself because that would not have been my choice. One of the things I do know is that a lot of players do on the random queues, they like to go for their upgrades first, and you know, don't get me wrong, upgrades are important, but this is the early stage of the game and you need to have a few units out regardless of what you're doing, whether you are taking up to high-tech units or if you want to try and get your upgrades. You should try and get at least a few units out to help defend the objective, in this case Orana's transport. And as you can see over here, Karax will be essentially solo defending with the Spear of Adun. But very nice orbital strikes do go down and ends up wiping this side. So Karax has made a bunch of sentinels here with energizers, and I believe Karax has already gotten the reconstruction upgrade, which is one of the more important upgrades for these sentinels. This is okay, but because you're dealing with a Swarmy Zerg composition, you're very, very prone to losing the unit's Shadow Guard that comes down here and deals with this attack wave. I think it'll be used to push in as well. So because Vorazun is using the Shadow Guards aggressively, it's not that bad. Personally, I'm not really much of a fan of temporary units. I'd rather have much more permanent units around. And you can see there Karax's passive is a little bit useful for the Shadow Guards, preventing them from taking unnecessary damage over here. But yeah, I would have personally I would have gone for the Black Hole duration, and we can see here that because we're dealing with a Swarmy Zerg attack wave, right now these Sentinels aren't really... They are struggling a little bit, but that's because it doesn't really have that many Sentinels out so far. But in the later stages of the game, I believe Swarmy Zerg, a better choice would be to go for Colossi with the Extended Thermal Lens and maybe even the Fire Beam upgrade. You can actually wipe out entire attack waves very, very quickly with just a few Colossi, 2 to 3 Colossi into the mix of your army. These Sentinels are good, and they do have the Reconstruction upgrade, but they will end up dying very quickly. Sentinels did try and get pulled back a little bit, but the charge procced, and they ended up getting hit here. And so far, Vorazun does not seem to be interested in building any units. So Vorazun has the 4 Shadow Guards, I believe. And these Shadow Guards are actually just sitting in the base here because they ended up dying. But Vorazun actually has no units out, and is just letting Karax deal with the Suppression Tower by himself. When you want to deal with these Suppression Towers, what you can do is add maybe a few Immortals into the mix to deal a little bit more damage. These Sentinels are going to be struggling a little bit. The good thing is that there are a bunch of Energizers here which can significantly increase the DPS output of Karax's army. But yeah, these 2 cannons and that 1 pylon is not going to be enough to defend. And we have another warp in here, which I believe is a bunch of Centurions have been warped in here. And Centurions are probably Vorazun's worst units. They do the same thing as Dark Templars do, but just Dark Templars are just better. So Centurions really have no real place for Vorazun. Like, even as a mineral dump, if someone was asking, you know, what kind of mineral dump to use, I would still say build pylons and build cannons. I think they're a little bit better than the Centurions. Much better to just go for the Dark Templars as a gas resource. But yeah, we do have a bunch of Centurions and a bunch of Sentinels, and they will start pushing to the next base here. And overall, Vorazun is using her energy relatively efficiently here. So Vorazun's sitting at about 38 energy right now, so that seems okay. And no time stop so far, and no use on the black hole, which is somewhat unfortunate as well. But now these army of Sentinels are going to be going in, and unfortunately they're just a bunch of Mulisks here. Nice orbital strikes do go down, ends up clearing those Mulisks, and now we have Pure Fire Beam. This Pure Fire Beam will be used to clean up a lot of the enemy units here. And as you can see, the Sentinels are really, they're decent, but I think having a few Immortals and a few Colossi into the mix will be a little bit better. There is a Zergling run by here, and now there is a time stop, and the time stop has come down. A few Stalkers come up here, I'm assuming to deal with the air units, but they are focusing on the Zergling and an Aberration instead of that Viper and those Scourge there. But Vorazun's army is now in position, and we'll end up cleaning up that side. And this is why having that black hole duration can be very useful. You can drop a black hole on that side, just trap the entire attack wave, and even these 3 Corsairs will basically shred the Zergling attack wave very, very quickly. Because the Zerg attack waves do not actually have a lot of HP, and they're relatively squishy. And this is where you'll see the problem comes up with Swarmy Zerg. You can see all of these Sentinels have died and are undergoing the reconstruction right now, and that is because of the Banelings are a key part of the attack wave. In fact, this thing is even called explosive threats. So having a bunch of Colossi at the back while your Sentinels tank in the front, your Colossi can actually clean up a lot of the Banelings very quickly and keep your army alive. And that is why going for Colossi when you're up against Swarmy Zerg is a little bit better. I am well aware that the Colossi do make very, very nice targets for the Scourge, but that is a very minimal price to pay when you have slightly more expensive units on the front line, especially if you don't have some Immortals. There is another Harass wave that has come up here, and again, these Sentinels do jump in, and that Sentinel goes down, and the Baneling does not seem to be... Oh, no, never mind. That Sentinel doesn't look surviving there. That Baneling was somewhat unsure what it wanted to do. A few Zerglings there nibbling on that pylon, and that Suppression Tower has gone down with Vorazun's army of Centurions and 3 Corsairs. Another Harass wave has now come up here, and... again, handled relatively easily by Karax. Some orbital strikes have come down now. I think Karax has realized that the Sentinels are taking a lot of damage, so he's going to be using the orbital strikes to deal with the ground forces, which is, again, not a bad idea. One other thing that Karax can do is, because they do have a lot of Spear for Dune energy, is they can research the Solar Flare upgrade. That upgrade creates a path of fire when you use a Solar Lance. and you can use your Solar Lance to essentially one-shot the attack wave. If you want to try and create a defensive line, what you can do is use a Solar Lance and just set fire to the ground in the same way, in the same pathing as the attack wave goes, and that'll also do relatively well when it comes to handling these Banelings, because the Banelings are basically the annoying part of the composition. Banelings and the Scourge. The Swarm Hosts and the Vipers, slightly annoying, but they're not that bad for Karax. Karax is able to handle it relatively easily. Vorazun has decided that she wants to go for the bonus objective now, but that is not going to be enough against the harass waves that will be coming up, because there are no Dark Templars and these Centurions are not very good. They don't even have their upgrade. We do have a Black Hole that has been put for this Ultralisk, and they've also triggered this bonus objective without actually clearing the area first. So all these Centurions are going to end up going down. And now you have a bunch of 2 Stalkers and a bunch of Corsairs here. We have an emergency time stop that has come out. And again, that is just going to delay the inevitable, which is that bonus objective is going to get completely wasted by the army of Zerglings, because there are no Dark Templars into the mix here. And in fact, the Corsairs don't even have the upgrades. And there goes a bonus objective right there. And now the Zerglings are done, and they are going to unleash their fury here. They end up eating the Dark Pylon. I'm not really sure what that Dark Pylon was there for. And it is just completely going to walk into Vorazun's base and just cause a lot of havoc here. These cannons are going to end up going down. Karax uses some Solar Lances to help deal with the wave. Actually, relatively decent Solar Lances there. And a bunch of Orbital Strikes to end up cleaning up a large number of the Zerg wave. But yeah, there goes that bonus objective. Karax is on this side trying to push in and defend the main objective. And this is the other thing I wanted to say. Bonus objectives, I think, provide 2,000 experience as opposed to the 20,000 base experience that you get from the mission, plus the difficulty bonus and all the other stuff. So bonus objectives are not really worth doing unless you are ahead or you are very confident in your ability to get the bonus objective as well as complete the mission. The main goal is to complete the main objective and not the bonus objective, and this is something I see a lot on the random queue as well, is people will try and focus on the bonus objectives. Bonus objectives don't give you much experience, and Vorazun ended up losing what? Army of 10 Centurions. Okay, I guess that's not really a valid argument because Vorazun didn't really have an army, but I hope you do get my point there. Karax's army is relatively decent. We have a bunch of Phoenixes here that are Mirages, which is relatively good. I believe they even have their phasing armor upgrade, which is going to be very useful when they're dealing with a Scourge. But again, I think having a few Colossi there would make Karax's life a little bit easier. There are a bunch of Swarm Hosts there that are completely trolling Vorazun right now. Vorazun can't really do anything because these Corsairs are here and they do not have detection and they cannot hit ground units because Vorazun has only 2 Dark Templars here. So Vorazun seems to be just interested in... Okay, so I was going to say Vorazun seems to be interested in getting upgrades, but Vorazun is not even getting any upgrades now. I think Vorazun has Vorazun maxed out? No, not yet. She's at level 2. But, yeah, there are actually no units now. This Swarm Host is just completely trolling Vorazun right now. And Karax is by himself and is actually handling the mission relatively well. Like, considering the circumstances, they're not getting any assistance from their ally. There's one random Mutalisk here. And Karax has... Oh, this was Karax's base. Never mind. I actually thought that was Vorazun's base earlier because I saw the Dark Pylon there. So my earlier note about the Zergling attack waves that went to attack that base, it was actually Karax's base. But as we can see here, a bunch of disabling clouds have come down onto this army, kind of rendering these sentinels useless. But again, relatively okay. There will be another defensive wave here. And we'll see how these Phoenixes are able to have very nice kiting there, and very nice usage of the orbital strikes here for, or the solar lenses for Karax. So this is the one thing I was talking about earlier. Like if Karax uses their Spear of Fidun abilities to clear the attack waves, it'll have an easier time for them. So it is a good response to the enemy composition. And now we have another attack wave on this side. And again, Vorazun is nowhere to be seen. Vorazun's Corsairs are just over here doing nothing. And Vorazun is just defending on this side with 2 very interesting Dark Pylon placement here. And yeah, there are a bunch of Swarm Hosts I think on here. But I think this will be relatively okay now. And Vorazun has warped in now 7 Dark Templars, but that again is not enough. But Karax has this mission essentially locked down relatively well. Again, considering the circumstances, this could be absolute carnage. But Karax is handling this. Karax is handling this okay. He's lost a total of 60 of these Sentinels, which is somewhat painful. 16 Mirages have also gone down. But I mean, considering this is essentially a solo, I think that is somewhat forgivable. Considering the enemy composition as well. Swarmy Zerg is one of the more difficult enemy compositions to deal with. And just take a look at the difference, like the completely efficient use of resource spending here. And Vorazun, on the other hand, floating 8,000 minerals and 2,000 gas. Vorazun should not be floating any gas. Like, Vorazun is so insanely gas heavy. You should be warping in a lot of Dark Templars and whatnot. But Vorazun is just doing more and more upgrades here. So just now at the 22-minute mark, like Shadow Fury is gonna get completed, and we have the Corsair Cloak upgrade as well that's coming up. And Blink has just started for the Dark Templars at 22 minutes and 30 seconds. These upgrades are the most critical upgrades for the Dark Templars, and those things should be researched as soon as the Dark Shrine comes out, basically. You should be getting your Dark Templars in and start researching the Shadow Fury upgrade. So Vorazun is... Vorazun had basically invested in a lot of the attack and the armor and the shield upgrades. And this is the other thing to also note. Shield upgrades and armor upgrades are usually not very useful. I guess against Swarmy Zerg it's okay, but in most circumstances you should be foregoing the armor and the shield upgrades, and you should just be focusing on attack upgrades, because the amount of benefit that you get for the attack upgrades, you get 10% approximately. You get approximately 10% attack boost or attack damage boost whenever you get an attack upgrade, but your armor upgrade only increases your armor by 1, as in you take 1 less damage. And same thing for the shield, your shield basically takes 1 less damage. So attack upgrades are significantly more effective at improving the efficiency of your army than shield and armor upgrades. Now, if you are playing a long mission and you are supply capped and your armor upgrades are cheaper, for example, if you're playing Kerrigan, then by all means go for your armor upgrades. But in most cases, attack upgrades should suffice, because most of the damage, as you can see here, is spell damage. Your army doesn't really take damage through auto attacks, because you usually end up shredding a lot of the stuff very quickly. Vorazun has triggered this bonus objective. I think this bonus objective will be okay. There's a warping of a Dark Pylon here, but Dark Pylons do not cloak objectives. This is also why when you're playing on minor evacuation, you should not use a Dark Pylon near the evacuation ship, because it cloaks everything around the evacuation ship, and the ship will end up getting focus fired down by the enemy units, and you will end up losing that ship. So yeah, there was a relatively ineffective use of the Dark Pylon there. And again, Vorazun filling 1,800 gas, still hasn't used all the gas, which is kind of weird considering they have a total of... how many gateways do they have? Actually, can't see it over here, but 3, 7. They have a total of 10 gateways and 3 stargates, which is a complete overkill, and should not be. It should not be a limiting factor for them in to be able to max out their army. So, yeah, the repair beam here for Karax is doing a really good job at keeping these units alive. All these phoenixes are in the yellow and orange, but yeah, these repair beam it's doing its job. And we now have a massive Vorazun army that has been formed still again, filling a lot of gas here. 22 Corsairs and 27 Dark Templars. Yeah, that is just way too much. I tend to go for, if I am building Corsairs as part of my army, like if I'm up against Swarmy Zerg, I do end up building 2 Stargates, and I'll usually have maybe about 5 to 7 gateways, really depending on how I float my minerals. One of the things you should be doing whenever you are playing Starcraft is take a look at how many resources you're floating and try and estimate whether you need to have a little bit more production. I think one of the mistakes I see players make is they either have too much production, so they'll build 20 gateways, or they'll have too little production and they'll have maybe 2 gateways. So try and always balance out your gateways. You should not have... your final number of gateways should not be the same as your starting number of gateways. You should build maybe 1 or 2 gateways to start, and then as your economy improves, you should be increasing the number of gateways to support your economy there. A lot of gas float here for Karax, which means Terex is not really using a lot of his gas-intensive units. And you know, I'm gonna say it for one last time. You're probably gonna get bored hearing me say it, but Colossi are a good choice. And you know, getting the Fire Beam upgrade, the Extended Thermal Lance, it can go a long way to not only minimizing this gas float, but also making your life a little bit easier when you're playing against Swarmy Zerg. But overall, relatively handled really well by Karax. This was essentially a Karax solo, and one of the things to note is how Karax actually adapted to the enemy composition. He was struggling with the swarmy aspect of the composition, and using his Spear of Adun abilities to just clean up. Like his army took no damage to that defensive wave there. And that is what you should always be doing. Always try and take a look at the situation in the game, see what you're struggling up against, and figure out how to solve it. This is indeed a strategy game, so relatively well played here for Karax. And now there's a final time stop that has come down. Nice timing on the time stop as well. Allows Vorazun to focus on the suppression tower with her Corsairs and not the rest of the harass wave, but there we go, the harass wave is now cleaned up, as well as the suppression tower. There should be one more attack wave that will be spawning, and it'll either spawn at the top here, or it'll spawn at the bottom on this side. So let's see where that wave comes up. And both armies are now in position. Okay, so it has spawned on this side. And Vorazun again, Vorazun has just basically left her out and been like, you know what, you got this. I'm just gonna sit here and I'm just gonna chill next to the transport and admire the paint job here. But that is Orana's transport saved, thanks to Karax. And yeah, there we go. That is GG.